Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to be covering the decks you can take to the standard metagame challenge this weekend. The best decks in the format, things you can hopefully win 30 packs with. Notably this weekend as well, it's Pro Tour Final Fantasy, a mix of draft for Final Fantasy as well as constructed in, dare I say, standard is flourishing. We have the metagame, what you see on the screen. Almost 43% of the competitors are bringing a variation of Izzet Prowess, the next deck Omni combo at 20%, Mono Red at 10, and then we have just kind of a stark drop off of, we pretty much could call it the others at this point. Domain, Dimir, we got Jund and Golgari Roots kind of separated to make it seem like there's diversity. We got some Boros Aggro, which is completely not just mice with some white cards in there. But kind of a mix of cards. So we're going to take a look where I can. I've pulled in some of the decks. So the deck lists themselves are not public yet, but some folks who are competing have posted their deck lists. So I've included those as well. But all these deck lists will be in the video description. You can copy paste to your heart's content. Good luck for all those competing in the event. We'll be back to regular cadence of the other formats for metagame videos next week. I had to go into the office this week for work, so didn't get time to record videos as much as I'd like to. So looking at untapped data, metagame from Diamond to Mythic, Prowess is still the most played deck, but not to the same extreme. 18%, we have Abzan Yuna at 10, Mono Red at 10, Domain at 10, Dimir at 8. So folks are still a little bit more diverse, but still not to the degree that we're seeing here. It's just 43%. Let's just play Prowess. So the highest win rate deck on the ladder from Diamond to Mythic rank for the last 7 days is Mono Red Aggro, 85%. One notable kind of change with the deck is they've started adopting some copies of Opera Love Song. So this is from Final Fantasy. It's an uncommon, so not too hard to craft. 2 mana, and either it's an impulse, kind of a questing druid style effect. You can play them till the end of your next end step. And then it also gives you the flexibility to just kind of push out lethal damage. It's 2 Valiant triggers that work race with your creatures. It's 2 creatures, up to 2. So you don't have to necessarily choose 2, but power boost of 2/0. I've been liking this card. It's just flexible. When you need card advantage, it's there. When you just need extra power, it's there as well. So it's not all in one extreme or the other. So they've cut Lightning Strike for this. So you're a little bit weaker to Drake Catcher, stuff like that. With the uptick in the amount of VVs, you may want to consider just how you configure that as well. But this configuration won the last standard challenge, give or take a couple cards between. And then it's just your core mono red deck, your Soulstones, Rockface Village, 22 lines in this one here, opting for the 23rd in the side. When you go into Sunspine links. So if you increase your curve, you can play up that as well. In the sideboard, just Lithomantic Barrage, blue or white things, 3 Soul Guide Lanterns, just respecting Omni combo. Magebane, good against Prowess, against Omni. You have Torches, cheap removal, Bolt, Witch Stalkers, and then a lot of the red decks are adopting Twin Maw Stormbird, just an easier to cast instead of the double red 5 damage spell. You're really not casting the Twin Maw like Stormbird side. You're just basically playing it for a repeatable spell that goes back into your library for 5 damage at Sorcery Seed and it's charring Bite. So you have kind of that element there. We have Gruul Delirium. Now, notably, there is a version of the deck that's playing some newer cards, and it's about 15% lower win rate. So you'll see kind of here with some of the newer cards, some of Brahilder, Terra, it's at 55%. The other version is at 70%. So kind of keeping true to what was working. We'll focus on this one here. I just wanted to mention it, so in case folks are like, but what about this card? You can play them, but they're notably worse. So the Delirium deck cares about having 4 or more card types in your graveyard, and then you achieve that through things like Wildfire Wickerfolk being multi-type, your Fear of Missing Out being multi-type. Bushwhack is basically a fight spell, or it helps you hit lands. You see Seed of Hope helps you kind of mill in. Violent Urge is kind of a self-assembly of an Embercleave. And then you have kind of your nemesises. Tursas also plays into the strategy. Breakout helps you haste out stuff. Keen Eye, just incidental graveyard hate in the main board. Sideboard, Dreadmaw Ire can be used as a pump effect against Quarry decks to blow up their Quarry. Haywire Mites, Artifact Enchantment hates. The deck get a little bit neutered compared with Graveyard hate, so you want to deal with that. You'll notice Pick Your Poisons, Paw Patches, just flexible spells there. Snakeskin and Overprotect as ways to protect your creatures, as put counters. This deck struggled a bit against Nowhere to Run. Snakeskin's very good, but obviously removes the hexproof. Overprotect is kind of the big kind of push, especially when you can get stuff with like multiple combat steps or double strike with the trample. Graveyard Hate, Sweepers for the aggressive decks. Outpace Oblivion's basically a 5 damage removal spell. That's an enchantment that goes to your graveyard. Sunspine for greedier mana bases, Witchstalker for more 5 damage. So that's just kind of that Gruul deck that we're just gonna delete out there. It was just for reference. We have Omni combo. So Omni combo has gone through many variations in terms of how it's configured and it wins. But the core of the deck remains the same, being let's put Omniscience into your graveyard and reanimate it with Abuela's Awakening. So this one doesn't have necessarily a combo instant win. You're not using battles or stuff like that. It's more just kind of a fair game plan. So what you're doing is like Meringue River Regent, Overlord of the Flood Pits, just a bunch of ways to dig through your deck. And then what you're able to do is like scroll shift your creatures to then just draw more cards or bounce more of your opponent's things. You do have the ability, you could shuffle in. So with Jace, there is technically infinite. So 2 Meringues and Jace, just -4 on Jace, and you mill out your opponent. So you do have that kind of combination, or just present a big board of creatures to just kind of kill them that way there. Lockdown for like Quarry decks, aggressive decks. Scroll shift is just extra ETBs. Stock up refills your hand. Then you have ways to kind of mill or shuffle stuff into your graveyard, draw, discard through the deck. You have more fables or more caverns in this one, just to name like Dragon or Avatar, if you need to kind of sneak through stuff through counter spells. Speaking of counter spells, you have things like Voice of Victory against kind of more interactive decks. You can just transform into like a blue-white mid-range deck. Decks that are doing like a lot of activated abilities, you can deal with that. And then just a bunch of cheap counters, removals, Graveyard Hate for the mirror. We have Jeskai Oculus, 68%. So Joshua is fit in the slot of Tursa. So Joshua just is similar idea, but works nicer in this shell. The flip is, so the body on the main side is more relevant in terms of blocking. When it flips, it becomes a 4/4 flying lifelinker. When it itself deals damage, so it gains you the life as well. So it deals 2 damage to each opponent. It has lifelink, so it gains you the life. And then its third chapter basically lets you reanimate like Oculuses, other Joshuas, anything you kind of throw into your graveyard. So it plays more thematically to the deck. You have Makos that can get bigger. You have Steamcore Scholars in here that draws discards. And then Oculus is kind of the big hit off Helping Hand or Recommission. So just a bunch of draw, discard, profs, puts counters on things, and then just a bunch of cheap removal mixed in. So this one is on Starting Town. I believe the person who's playing this deck message in the comments on the last one, they tweaked their mana base a little, they said. I think they said too many fast lines, so they just went with more paint lines. Given that all these lines care about turn 1, 2, 3, and then after comes play tapped. So there was too many lines they were finding that came into play tapped afterwards. So something you might want to consider if you're running the deck. Against decks with a lot of graveyard hate, you can bring in Chandra. This deals with artifacts, enchantments, and Lauren. Sheltered for the aggressive decks, no more lies, cheap counters, big mana decks, control decks, combo decks. You have High Noon for storm decks or Omni. Destroy Evil as artifact and enchantment and big thing hate. Abrade for the Quarry matchups, cheap removal, and then Ghost Vacuum for graveyard hate. So Izzet Prowess has got a bunch of different flavors, and they made it much more expensive with VVs at like $70+ in paper. So there's this version here. A lot of them are kind of shifting to somewhat more mid-range focused. They're, while still very explosive, they're not like the slick shot, 20U in one turn on like turn 3 type thing. They did pick up the bounce package again. So this town in the main board, Thunder Trap Trainer. You have obviously your loops with Storm Chaser's Talent. This town ain't big enough. with VV, there's the potential to generate enough mana that you can keep doing it kind of over and over again for value. And some of them are playing Agatha's Soul Cauldron, where you can use Astrologian's Lab that lets you kind of move it between the different otter tokens and then just kind of go infinite pseudo with that, with just recasting spells over and over again. So your main creatures in this one are VV, Draycatcher, Thundertrap Trainer, and then just draw a lot of discard style effects, stock up to kind of refill your hand. Your sideboard, you have Lithomantic Barrage for blue-white decks. You have Spell Pierce, Cheap Disruption, Unable to Scream as kind of dealing with bigger things, Shieldred, big creatures that normally blue or red can't deal with. Abrade for the mirrors, cheap removal. Rebel Salvo, another cheap way to have 5 damage removal since you have a lot of equipment. Disdainful Stroke for big mana decks. Ral for the grindier matchups. And then Roaring Furnace removal, as well as just kind of card draw in the grindier matchups. It's also removal you can pick up with this town. There's that version. There's a more aggressive version. So this one here from Victor Carvalho, MTGO Grinder. They went top 4 in the last MTGO challenge. So this one's just Draycatcher VV. But notable thing here, it's got Demonic Ruckus. So this is something you could plot early, and then you can cast it for free, 0 mana on the turn 3, potentially with VV. So you get a counter, go to 1 power, and then this adds an additional power. So it basically on turn 3 lets you then have access to 2 more mana on your turn. So you can basically cast like a couple more spells, get some more pings, and then set up for like a monster turn 4 potentially. So this one I'd say is a little bit more aggressive. It also works nice with Draycatcher, giving evasion, trample to push through some damage there. But pretty stock otherwise. No this town in this one. But your Roaring Furnaces, your Barrages, Twin Maw, like we've seen in other decks, just as 5 damage removal, and then some morales in the sideboard. And then lastly, there is kind of this bigger mana one. So some of the PT, this one was closer to some of the PT decks that I've seen. So VV, Thundertrap Trainer as like the main core. You have Corey Steel, obviously, 3 this town. So just a little bit more bounce package, 3 Roaring Furnace in the main, along with Storm Chaser's talent. So a lot more kind of control-y mid-range that's just looking to win off VVs or Thundertrap Trainer to kind of pull through and then eventually just quarry them to death. A couple of things, you have Fresh Start. The Flash loses all abilities. Enduring Curiosity kind of for grind, Unable to Scream. So just a bunch of cheap spells to deal with your opponent's stuff. Abzan Yuna. So this is built around Yuna, Hope of Spira. So looking to put cards into your graveyard. The curve looks a little odd here, but like Virtue Persistence is a 2-drop, cheap removal that can be reanimated. Baelmerk fills your graveyard. Summon Fenrir, as well as Overlord of the Hauntwoods are 3 mana ramp effects that help you get ahead. But Beans draws off all these cards, and then you're basically Yunaing back like Summon Primal Odin, blow up stuff, and then it's just they have to block or kill it or they lose the game. You have Summon Bahamut, you have Summon of the Knights round, just ways to kind of bring back big things, but it's kind of a Abzan ramp deck. Authority for the aggressive decks, along with Cut Down, Duress for hand hate, Ghost Vacuum for graveyard hate, Haywire Might for hate pieces, High Noon for the Storm or Prowessy style decks, Terra Sunder, Flexible Removal, along with Maelstrom Pulse, as well as Tranquil Throwback, all kind of playing in that regard. The one thing with this deck, I don't think Starting Town is appropriate in this deck. Starting Town's usually in a more aggressive deck. I would probably just play either more Verges, kind of cleaning up the mana base there. So there's another competitor for the Pro Tour, Brian Hans, and I will copy this deck list over to Aether Hub or a consumable way. So this is a Naya version of Yuna, but basically red-white with the splash green. So only 1 copy of Esper Origins. You have Yuna in here, but you have full High Noon's main, Fear of Missing Out, Joshua, Screaming Nemesis. So it's kind of like a mix. Like Overlord of the Boilerworks is really cool with Yuna because when you bring it back that turn, it still has lifelink. So the 4 damage it's dealt is also lifelink damage. You have Elder Dragon War that draws discards. It's a sweeper for early aggressive decks, and then it leaves a 4/4 behind. So all things that kind of enabled what the deck's trying to do. You have Torches, Brotherhood's End, and then just a bunch of kind of removal options within the deck itself. So that's another cool list. We have Azorius Control, 61%. So card they're picking up is Ultima. Just clean answer to all artifacts and creatures. So just that instead of Sunfall, just with the amount of quarries, you want to be able to hit that since they can reproduce creatures pretty easily. Otherwise, it's just tons of removal, stock up to refill. You have Bezas, Elspeths, some Overlords, Meringues. Quite a few win conditions in the deck. It's not like some of these control decks where your win condition is your opponent conceding or like a single Restless Anchorage or something. Fountain Port style thing. Again, just ability to kind of shift into more mid-range focused decks, Jace to mill out the big mana decks, like these Yuna decks, things that are looking to put cards in the graveyard, but just push them and mill them out 15 cards at a time. Dashana for activated abilities, Cut Seals for graveyard hate, Stonebrain for combo hate, High Noon for combo decks that are looking to play multiple spells like Prowess, Fairy Mastermind for Beans deck, anything looking to draw a bunch of cards, Devout to Krieg, red or black hate, and then change the equation is red or green, kind of cheap counter. We then have Domain, so pretty stock. We're seeing 3 High Noons in the main though, so just really respecting the Prowess decks, trying to hate on them in that regard. Bunch of Sweepers. There's another deck that you could probably just get away with playing Ultima over like Sunfall, or even maybe Day of Judgment instead, just being able to kind of go up. Since you're playing split up, you can kind of go up in that regard. But this one here is basically green-white splash Zur in the main. You'll notice just kind of how the configuration of the mana base. Overlord of the Flood Pits for kind of the grindier matchups. Elish Norn for a lot of ETBs. Dashana for activated abilities. Full Stonebrain for combo hate, just not willing to lose to Omni, it seems. High Noon Authority, again for the aggressive decks. Just really teched for kind of like the core 3-4 decks of the format in terms of the sideboard. We have Golgari Beanstalk. So not a deck I would personally play, but people love these kind of strategies. So milling yourself over, putting cards into your graveyard, things like Town Greeter puts cards into your graveyard, his lands. You have Overlord of the Balemark puts cards into your graveyard, and then you just get cost reduction. So you play a bunch of big fatties, including Diamond Weapon, that draws you cards off Beanstalk. Kind of go to town that way there. Your sideboard's just got more big stuff. Sweeper and Harvester of Misery, Nissa for kind of the grindier matchups, any enchantment heavy deck. Baloth for the discard decks, Rex Sage, Artifact Enchantment Hate, Group's Uprising for trample effects, if they're blocking with like a bunch of cheap tokens, Ooze for graveyard hate, Haywire Might for hate pieces, and Cut Down for aggressive deck. And then lastly, Dimir Midrange, 59%. So picking up some copies of Cecil in the main. You have like your kind of core mid-rangey, so not really bounce. Seeing access again to Gix. I might find a better version. I'm going to take a look at this. This one's on Gix, but most are still on Curiosity. I haven't seen Gix played in forever. So I will paste a Dimir version. It might not necessarily be this. I thought this one had the Curiosities in it, but I don't know if this is necessarily... It's not a deck I play that often or keep tabs on. I'm more red-based aggro, so I will check. If this is what the going deck is, I will include it. If not, I will tweak it, because some of them I've seen are playing the 2-drop Otter, the 1/3 that locks down an artifact or creature. Curiosity is still relevant. I just think Gix is a bit of a liability in a format that's very aggressive in nature, but I will find another version of the deck. In any case, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one. Good luck to those competing, and we'll catch you next time.